Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ruby, this is Ruby Red, and today we're gonna play another round of my TBR game, tic-tac-TBR. This is a game I play every month to kind of guide my reading. I don't like to have a strict TBR, so for this game I generate 9 prompts, I put them in a 3x3 grid, and then throughout the month I read books to try to fulfill those prompts and get 3 in a row. And then for every 3 in a row I get, I give myself a reward. Those are generally to make it a little bit easier for me to succeed in the next month. And of course, if I'm doing too well and I get too many 3 in a rows or I fill in my board completely, then I have to add a challenge prompt, which is a randomly selected book from my 30x30 list. And that stays on the board until I complete it. So that's the game, and the playlist is going to be linked below where you can watch the rest of these, and there's also a link to a Google Drive template, a Google Sheets template that you can save to your own drive, modify the prompts to suit your needs, and then play your own game. First things first, we have to tackle my November TBR board and see how I did. I gotta say, I was so excited to finally be free of my 75 hard reading challenge. I have a whole video talking about that. I'll link it somewhere if you are curious, but I felt so free for the second half of this month, and that just had me so excited about what I was gonna be able to accomplish in my game now that I could read whatever I wanted. Okay, here is my November board. The prompts are a Tales from Two Trails prompt, which is another TBR game that Kim from Expedition Through Pages plays. And the prompts that she had for November were a TBR jar pick, a book from another country, a book set in Antarctica, and rereading an old favorite. So one of those. Then the next prompt was a book from Libby, which is my absolute favorite app. Then I had a book with water element, a disappointing book, a book by a Latinx author, a book that fits Amy's viewer prompt, which this month was red on the cover, a book by a Gen Z author, so a trans, non-binary, genderqueer author, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, which was my challenge prompt, and finally an intimidating read. Those are the prompts, and I had 2 double up rewards. So 2 of the books that I read I can use for more than 1 prompt, which is, I said it before and I'll say it again, too much power. But we're rolling with it. It's the end of the year. I need a win. So let me share with you some of the books that I read to fulfill these prompts. These are in order in which I finished them for anyone who cares. First up, I read a book from Libby. I listened to the audiobook of Poisoner in Chief by Stephen Kinzer. This was about like MK Ultra and the CIA's various attempts at mind control and their extremely unethical human experiments. It was very interesting. It was honestly, I'll say more about it in my reading wrap-up, reading journal, reading wrap-up, whenever that happens. But that book was way more wild than I expected, and I expected it to be wild. Anyway, then I finished a book that was extremely intimidating to me and to everyone else, presumably, and that was Babel by R.F. Kuang. This was a highly anticipated book. It is a big book. It is like dark academia, but fantasy and like about translation and imperialism. So yeah, intimidating read, but I read it and I absolutely loved it. Next, I read a book that has water in it, and that was The Night Ship, which takes place half on a ship and half on an island surrounded by water. That was by Jess Kidd. That was really good too. Okay, and then I finished The Bell Jar. So The Bell Jar, done. I read her. Oh my god. And I'm gonna double up. I'm gonna use The Bell Jar to fulfill my Tales from Two Trails prompt as well, because I don't have a TBR jar per se, but if I did, it would be my 30x30 list. And I picked The Bell Jar randomly out of that list to go onto this board months ago, but I'm counting that as my randomly selected TBR jar book. So there you go. 1 double up down. The next book that I finished was a disappointment. This was actually not the only disappointing book I read this month, but it is the only one that didn't fulfill another prompt, and that was The Sanatorium by Sarah Pierce. This wasn't like a huge letdown, but I was really excited about it. I had been like vaguely wanting to read it for a while, and then I did, and I was not as good as I really thought it was going to be, but I'm probably still going to read the next one. Okay, then next I finished a book that I'm going to double up again, and that is a book written by a non-binary author, and it has a red cover, and that is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. That book was phenomenal. I actually can't say anything else. You're going to have to wait for my wrap up. I don't know what I'm going to say there, but oh my god. I have written like a little review of most of these on my Goodreads also, if you're curious, and that's linked below as well. Okay, and then the final prompt, book by a Latinx author. I read Fresh Banana Leaves by Dr. Jessica Hernandez. This is a nonfiction book about Indigenous wisdoms, Indigenous landscapes, and actually I'm going to really struggle with talking about that book in my wrap up as well. So I'm not even going to bother right now, but I read it, and that means that I fulfilled all the prompts on my board. So congratulations. Good job, me. Love that. Feels good. Feels like I'm back on it. Okay. I love reading again, and I'm excited for December. Now in December, I'm going to have to add a challenge prompt from my 30 by 30 because I did complete my board, but that's okay. That's good. That's what I want. I am going to do something a little bit different for December, and this is actually something that I did last year as well. Basically, it's the end of the year, and there are some books that I have not gotten to that I wanted to get to, books that I have talked about a lot, that I said I was going to read, books that have been like in the back of my mind for a long time, especially books that I put off because of the 75 hard. So for December, I have a list of 8 books, and then I'll pick a 30 by 30 prompt, and then I'm gonna just like randomly slot those into my board. So it's not gonna be prompts, it's just gonna be titles, and I'm going to try to read as many of those as I can in the next month. Just to like finish out my year, finish out some of the things that I really wanted to get to. So voila, the board, the December board. I have a list of my books. I just like randomly ordered it, and they'll just go on in that order, but my 30 by 30 book is going to go in the middle because that was the last prompt I fulfilled in November. That's just how I decide. So I'm just going to quickly generate number 15 on my list. Here is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. So that's the first book going on my December TBR board. This is tough. That's actually a book that I have started earlier this year, and I couldn't finish it. I gave up, moved on. So hopefully in December I'll have like the brain space to approach it again, and hopefully just like read the whole thing in a very short period of time. I think that's how you need to read that book. It's a very stream of consciousness story about a woman who I think is throwing a dinner party. But yeah, okay, so that's my first prompt, or my first book. My next book, or I guess the first book that's gonna go on there, on the top there, is Bewilderment by Richard Powers. This is one of the last books on my 5-star predictions list. I made a video, 5-star predictions, that I put out early this year, and I read almost all of them. So this one I have not yet read, and since putting it on that list, I have heard a lot more people reading and talking about it, and I'm actually really nervous about whether it's going to be good or not, because the overstory was impeccable. It was like, it's one of my favorite books ever. It was so good. So I thought that this new book by the same author would probably also be so good, but the reviews have been not as good. And he's written a lot of books, so I'm basing all of my hopes on like the only thing I've read from him. But this month I'm gonna try to read Bewilderment. I do already have my hold from the library ready to go, so I hope it's good. It doesn't have to be 5 stars, but it has to be 4 stars. Okay. The next book I'm gonna throw up there is The Arbornaut by Meg Lohman. Yeah, this was my hopeful for like from last year I never read, and then I really wanted to read it for Nonfiction November. I did actually start it, but I put it down again in favor of some other things, so I'm hoping to wrap that up in December, because what I did read I really liked. It's sort of a memoir of the author's experience like getting interested in science and becoming a botanist, not a forester, an arbornaut, studying the canopy of trees and her work in conservation and research and all that. So really excited to get back into it. I liked the writing. I was happy. The book is heavy, okay? The next book I'm throwing up onto my TBR board for December is going to be The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. This, again, like, do I remember what this is about? I think it's like JP Morgan's personal library, something. But when it was coming out, I was really hyped on it. I really wanted to read it. And it's the final book from my 5-star predictions list that I haven't read yet, but I also finally accepted my hold on this from my library. It had been haunting me throughout my whole 75 hard journey, and now I have it. So hopefully I will read it and like it. This one, I think I do want to give it 5 stars. Please. Okay, the next one is another book I've been so highly anticipating, and I also have been playing like push and pull with my hold from my library, waiting until I could accept it at a time when I could like really read it and like enjoy it. And that is Notes on an Execution by Dania Kukafka, I think. This is classed as literary suspense, and it's about, a serial killer, I think, is on death row and going to be executed. And so this book is kind of from the perspectives of all these people that surround him, like people from his life, his victims' families, his own family, some of his personal relationships, and how all of these people are impacted by that. And I've heard really good things about how it approaches like serial killing and also execution. So I'm really interested to dive into that, and I have my hold now, so I'm ready. Okay, the next one I'm putting up here is kind of a fun one to me, and that is The Idea of You by Robin Lee, I think. This book is being adapted soon into a movie with Anne Hathaway, and it's the book that my book club is going to be reading in like December. We're meeting early January, so I'm going to be reading it in December, I hope. It has been described to me as Harry Styles fan fiction, but I think it's going to be just like a silly fun time. A woman, like a mother, middle-aged, whatever, she has a teenage daughter maybe who loves a boy band, and so she takes her child to go see this boy band, and then I think like she ends up falling in love with one of the people in the band. And if I'm totally wrong, I'm sorry, but I think I'm right. And the movie's coming out, so we love an adaptation. Anyway, that's going to be a hoot, I believe. The next book I'm going to put on here, I tried to have a mix of books that were going to be like library books, ebooks, books that I owned. So the next one is a book that I own. I don't actually have it next to me, but that is Gathering Moss by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I actually was sort of rereading. I was listening to the audiobook of Braiding Sweetgrass a bit last month, kind of like as a comfort. And I'm really excited to dive into this previous work of that same author. And my friend gave it to me for my birthday, so yeah, I want to read it. And it's a little book, and I think it's going to be an absolute delight. Next, we've got something that I absolutely have to read because I'm actually annoyed. I'm sick of me talking about this. I'm going to read Under the Banner of Heaven by Jon Krakauer in December. I have literally brought it up in every TBR video for the last like 6 months. I feel like maybe more than that. So I'm sorry that I keep talking about this. And at this point, like, if I don't love it, it's going to be really embarrassing. But I'm going to read it. I'm not going to say anything else. The final book on this TBR board for December is a book that I have an ARC of from NetGalley. And I had started this in the last couple of days of my 75 hard reading challenge, and then just put it down as soon as that ended, moved on to all these other things. But I was really enjoying it, and I do want to finish it soonish so that I kind of still remember like what happened in the first 10% or whatever. And that is The God of Endings by Jacqueline Holland. This is a book about a woman who's a vampire, and it's told in like the present day timeline where she runs a preschool, a French preschool in upstate New York, and then the like a past timeline of her childhood in that same area in New York, and then how she became a vampire and like traveled and all that. So it's dark, but the language is very beautiful. I'm really enjoying it, and again, I just want to finish it before I forget what was going on. So those are the books that I'm hoping to read in December. It's okay if I don't read all of them, but they are all books that I'm really excited about, and I just think that this is a way that I'm gonna remember that I'm excited about them. Except maybe Mrs. Dalloway. I'm not so excited about that, but that's okay. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna read some books. It's the end of the year. I'm tired. So thank you so much for watching. As always, I really appreciate everyone who watches. I love to know what you're reading, what you're planning on reading. And I love every single like, comment, and subscribe. So glad you stopped by. Thanks for watching. I will see you back here sometime soon for another video. Goodbye.